What's going on, guys? We'll go back with another Dragonflight video. This is a War Within, looking at the hero talent trees. We got 12 new trees that were released a couple days ago, or yesterday, I think. I'm just going to look at the Shaman one today, of course, because this is my main. This is what I play a lot of, and it happens to be a Resto/Ellie combination. So something that I feel like I can speak on here. And I'm going to go through the entire tree, and I'm going to talk about each node, and then I'm going to try to dig in a little bit more to the details of how I think this could actually be a powerful tree. My overall TLDR is that this tree is actually quite good, and I was watching Liquid Max's stream last night, and his chat was pretty negative about this tree. I think Max actually had a pretty good perspective on it, even though he doesn't play Resto Shaman or Ellie, but I think everybody else in the chat was kind of like, because that's just what everybody does. But I think there's some really good hidden gems in here that people aren't really understanding. And we're going to go over the whole tree, and I'm going to talk about that, okay? So let's just dive right in. The first thing for the FARSEER Shaman is going to be Call the Ancestors. This is your big new thing that you get. Essentially, you have two abilities that are going to call an ancestor to your aid. Primordial Wave for Ellie, and Unleash Life for Resto. They're going to call an ancestor for 6 seconds. The ancestor is going to cast a healing or damage spell whenever you do. So they're going to copy you. Now, it's not going to be, as we understand right now, it is not, you cast Lava Burst, they cast Lava Burst. They're just going to cast a similar damaging spell. So from what we understand, there is no synergy with, let's say things like Surge of Power or Aftershock. Sorry, not those. The Lava Surge, obviously getting a proc, or like reducing the cooldown of Primordial Wave whenever you cast a Lava Burst, right? So if I cast Lava Burst and the Ancestor casts a similar spell, is it going to reduce the cooldown of Lava Burst? No, it won't. As of right now, that is not what happens, okay? Same with Resto. There are no, like, Riptide synergies. If I cast Riptide, they're not also going to cast Riptide and then give me the Tidal Waves buff. So that's a little bit disappointing, I would say, because there's obviously lots of room for synergy there. But as of right now, this functions the exact same way that the Holy Priest Naru, functions, where when you cast a Holy Word, they start copying your spells for like 6 seconds. So that's the baseline ability. Let's see where it goes. I'm going to go down the middle column first, then left, then right, because the middle column tends to have a lot to do with the main mechanic. Heed my call. Ancestors last 2 additional seconds, so instead of 6, they last 8. That seems okay. It's not, like, incredible, but it is actually, it's 20% more, right, duration, if I'm doing my math right there. So it is quite a bit more. Routine communication seems really good. Lava Burst casts have an 8% chance to call an ancestor. A Riptide has a 15% chance to call. So this is where it gets really interesting to me. And this is where I think some of the people on like Max's stream, especially the chat, just didn't really understand where this could get really good. So for example, for Ellie Shaman, there are multiple ways to cast multiple Lava Bursts. And I'm not even including the current tier set bonus, because we're not going to have the current tier set bonus when we're in the War Within, right? So what I'm simply thinking about is Deeply Rooted, getting the Ascendance proc, or taking Ascendance itself. If you throw Liquid Magma Totem down and do a Primordial Wave into another Flame Shock, and then press Lava Burst, you're going to hit Lava Burst. It's going to go off onto all 6 of those targets, which is awesome. If you get multiple Deeply Rooted procs going, let's say over the course of a minute, you get 2 Deeply Rooted procs in an AoE situation. So every 30 seconds, let's say, you're getting a DRE proc. You're going to be launching multiple Lava Bursts, like 6 potentially if you're playing really well. So that gives routine communication much more value in an AoE situation where every time you're casting one of those Lava Bursts, it has a chance to call an ancestor. That's pretty crazy. Also, of course, Primordial Wave is the way that Elemental Shaman is going to be summoning their ancestor. And, of course, we have the current tier set bonus. The current build right now is the Rolling Magma build, where you're constantly reducing the cooldown of Primordial Wave by 1 second every time you press Lava Burst. So you could essentially take the Season 3 build right now and just port it into this FARSEER ancestor tree, and I think it would function quite well because you'd be getting cooldown reduction on Primordial Wave. Realistically, if you're playing very, very well, then your Primordial Wave is probably going to be like a 15 to 20 second cooldown at max. So it's similar to how Unleash Life is a 15-second cooldown. I think that's what Blizzard is thinking here, right? Unleash Life is a 15-second cooldown. With this tree, you should be able to make your Primordial Wave a 15-second cooldown as well. And if you do, then you're getting lots of Primordial Waves. You're getting lots of haste. You're getting a lot of haste, right? And you're getting to just launch lava burst after lava burst after lava burst, and you're hoping to trigger deeply rooted. And if you trigger deeply rooted, you're going to get way more ancestors. I think that there's some really good synergy here for Ellie. For Resto, there's lots of ways to cast Riptide, right? Riptide can cast from Primordial Wave. You could take Primal Tidal Core, which will also cast Riptide. So, and then of course, you're going to have 2 charges of Riptide. As we're going to see in a minute, you're actually going to have 3 charges of Riptide if you're taking Echo the Elements plus Elemental Reverb, which you're going to get for free. So we'll get to this in a minute, but I do want to highlight it right now. You're going to have lots of charges of these spells, both Lava Burst and Riptide. That's going to make routine communication, I think, pretty much mandatory. It's definitely better than Heed My Call, I think, if you can get it to trigger. So let's keep going. Primordial Capacity, Maximum Maelstrom, and Mana. This is kind of a lame node for sure, but Maximum Mana for Resto Shaman is actually a really big deal because their ability to get mana back, like Resurgence, is really bad. It's very frustrating. It's not really bad. Let me strike that. It's like really mid, I would say. It's mediocre at best. It's nothing like a Mistweaver Monk, right? You can't get mana back like that. Even like a Disc Priest can get tons of mana back. Even a Holy Paladin can get lots of mana back with Blessing of Autumn. I think it's winter. It's winter. It's none of the ones I said. Blessing of Winter. Plus they have like Reclamation. Like there's other things. Resurgence just feels bad to me is what I'm trying to say. It feels like it really falls down the totem pole. So Water Shield and Resurgence together are just not really enough, in my opinion, to get mana back. So getting more maximum mana for free, I actually kind of like this. This is going to give you like just more room to breathe, which is nice. The Maximum Maelstrom is okay. But right now, for Ellie Shaman, we're not even taking the Maximum Maelstrom increase right here anyway. Nobody takes Swelling Maelstrom. So this is probably not that great for Ellie, I would say. Let's keep going. Maelstrom Supremacy. Increases the damage of Earthshock, Ellie Blast, and Earthquake. Increases the healing of Healing Wave, Healing Surge, Wellspring, Downpour, Chain Heal. This is like really lame. I don't like this at all. You'll notice that it does not say it increases the damage of Lava Burst or Riptide, which of course are the main spells that are part of this tree. Like you're going to be triggering your DRE with those spells. So it's interesting. I hate these kinds of nodes. Max had a really good point in his stream. He thinks this is kind of like the tuning dial node. Like if this is really overpowered, they'll just tune this knob down. If this is really underpowered, they'll tune this up. That might be what they do. Here's your final node, Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing or damaging spell within 10 seconds is instant and deals 10% increased damage and healing. If you know Nature's Swiftness, it is replaced by Ancestral Swiftness and causes Ancestral Swiftness to call an ancestor to your side. So this is like not a very good capstone node. This is something that Max was talking about in his stream. I agree. I don't think this is very powerful, right? Compare this to something like the friggin' Mage, like this one here. You can recall all your embedded splinters and just like absolutely annihilate an enemy. Like if you compare them, they're not that cool. However, there is a little bit more going on here with this one. So one thing that I'm worried about right now is that Ancestral Swiftness does not say that your next spell is free, right? So Nature Swiftness says your next healing or damaging spell is instant and free. That's the biggest reason to take Nature Swiftness, honestly, as a Resto Shaman, is to get a free Chain Heal, a free Healing Rain, because those are expensive spells. And it doesn't say that they're free in Ancestral Swiftness. Now, it does say if you know Nature Swiftness, this replaces it. So I'm assuming they're going to work in that functionality. I'm just hoping they just somehow miss this. But that's my first worry right off the bat. My second thing that I want to say about Ancestral Swiftness is that it gives you an ancestor for free, which is great. So again, there's an opportunity here to have multiple ancestors up at the same time. And if we look at the Ellie Shaman tree, they have Flash of Lightning, which is a really, really big deal. Casting Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning reduces the cooldown of your nature spells. This includes Nature Swiftness, or what will now be Ancestral Swiftness. So there is an interesting synergy here where especially in AoE, where you're going to be casting Chain Lightning a lot more. In single target, you'll probably be casting a lot more Lava Burst because you're going to have 3 charges. But let's pretend like you're going to cast multiple Chain Lightnings. If you can reduce the cooldown of Nature Swiftness from a 1-minute cooldown to even like a 40-second cooldown, at maximum probably like a 30-second cooldown, then there's some serious value here in terms of the uptime on the ancestor, right? You're getting another ancestor up every 30 or 40 seconds instead of every minute. So There's something there with Flash of Lightning. That's only for Ellie Shaman. Unfortunately, Resto does not have a similar talent, but we'll have to just see. You know, there's still obviously lots of good use there. It's really not great as a capstone for this. I hope they buff it. I hope they make it a lot better. I have another idea that I was thinking of that I'll talk about in a minute. Actually, I'll just talk about it now. I might as well talk about it now. I had an idea for this final node. So instead, I think you could make this a whole new spell and call it like Ancestral Awakening. Okay, just call it that. Something like that. It's like a 1-minute cooldown, and it lasts for 12 seconds. Here's what it does. You summon an ancestor, and you refresh any active ancestors that are out right now, and then you buff all ancestors' duration by 6 seconds. So instead of ancestors lasting for 6 seconds, they're going to now last for 12. It only lasts for 12 seconds. It's just a big like cooldown where you get your ancestors and then they all go to their maximum duration, okay? And then for the next 12 seconds, anytime one of your ancestors casts a spell, it reduces the cooldown of Ascendance by, let's say, 3 seconds, okay? So the idea would be with this cooldown is that you get a couple of procs from, let's say you proc Deeply Rooted and you fire off a bunch of lava bursts and you get an Ascendance. You get an ancestor out. Maybe you get 2 ancestors out. And then you pop this cooldown, Ancestral Awakening, and it gives you a 3rd ancestor. Now you have 3 ancestors out, and then they all last for 12 seconds instead of 6 seconds. And every time they cast a spell, they're reducing the cooldown on Ascendance. Or, I would say, after the 12 seconds is up, then you are guaranteed to proc a Deeply Rooted on your next like Lava Burst or your next Riptide. Okay? That would be kind of cool, and I feel like it would fit with this theme a lot better, where you're calling the ancestors, you turn into your Ascendance form, which kind of makes you look ancestral and cool. Like, I feel like it would fit together really well, and it would work really well with the basic theme of this, because with this call the ancestors, you're going to be looking to go into the fire build for Elemental Shaman, and you're going to be looking to do a Riptide build on Resto Shaman. That's just what's going to happen. So that naturally leads you to Deeply Rooted and to Ascendance, because Deeply Rooted can proc Ascendance. So I feel like having a capstone that focused on Ascendance would be a much, much better idea, and I think that'd be really cool. Like, summon an extra ancestor, refresh all your ancestors. All of their abilities are cooling down Ascendance, so it means that it would give you flexibility as well. It would give you the opportunity to potentially take Ascendance. So if you don't have Ascendance on your bar, then the cooldown reduction on Ascendance is useless. But if you have Deeply Rooted, then you're going to get a guaranteed proc of Deeply Rooted at the very end of the 12 seconds. If you do have Ascendance on your bar, then you're cooling it down. And you could take, like, Ascendance here, and then you could take Oath of the Farseer as an Ellie Shaman and get a minute off the cooldown. So then you have a 2-minute Ascendance, and if your ancestors are cooling it down for you, maybe you have, like, a 1-minute Ascendance. That would be really cool. That would be really compelling as a capstone node. And it would work really well with the rest of this tree. So I'm disappointed with Ancestral Swiftness for sure. I'm worried about it not making your spell free. I do wish it was a little bit more powerful, but it does give us an Ancestor, and there's a way to cool it down with Flash of Lightning as an Ellie Shaman. So just keep that in mind. Let's go to the left side of the tree. Your Ancestor spells are 20% more powerful. That seems like fine. We don't know what the numbers are. This one seems really good, though. Ancient Fellowship. Ancestors have a 15% chance to call another Ancestor when they expire. So again, you're in your big Deeply Rooted proc, and you fire off a bunch of lava bursts, and you call 2 ancestors because you get lucky with your procs, right? And then you press your Nature's Swiftness or an Ancestral Swiftness and use it on Chain Lightning or whatever, or Ellie Blast, and then your ancestors are starting to expire, but they're calling another ancestor. Like, you could see how this goes, right? This could be up all the time. Could be really cool. When an ancestor is called, they reduce the cooldown of fire, elemental, storm elemental, and by 10 seconds. So again, more synergy. If you're calling them and recalling them when they die over and over and over again, then you're getting free CDR on your fire elemental. It might mean that you don't have to take Surge of Power. Maybe you could take Aftershock instead. And then for ancient, this one down here. When an ancestor is called, they reduce the cooldown of Riptide by 2 seconds. This is maybe not as powerful, but Riptide does give you the Tidal Waves buff, so you could basically have permanent uptime on this sucker. I think this is definitely the weaker between Ellie and Resto. This one's definitely a lot weaker, because if you're going to have 3 charges of Riptide with Echo the Elements plus Elemental Reverb, like, you do not need to also have the cooldown come down, realistically speaking. But whatever. you could definitely spec into all the Riptide talents then. It would make Riptide an incredibly powerful ability. Here's your defensive node. Reduce the cooldown of Nature's Guardian by 10 seconds and cause it to heal for an additional 5%. Earth Shield has additional 3 charges, heals you for 25% more. So the Nature's Harmony one kind of looks really bad on the surface, but if you look at Nature's Guardian, you get healed for 10% of your max health. That's now 15% of your max health, and then it happens every 35 seconds instead of every 45. So it is a slight like buff. It's almost like a 50% buff to Nature's Guardian. It's 50% more health that you're getting, and not quite 50% more cooldown reduction. It's reducing it by the cooldown by about 35%. So it's like it's okay, but you know, Shaman is sort of historically quite weak defensively. So I think that Resto Shaman maybe is a bit of an exception there because you do have Earth Shield giving you 6% damage reduction at all times because you're going to have an Earth Shield on yourself. And then whenever your Elemental is out, if you have like Rocky out, he will give you 15% more max health. And then, of course, you have this sort of Execute Salvation here with Nature's Guardian giving you a nicer heal now. That could potentially be really good. The Earth Shield having more charges and healing you for more is also quite good. Because of Earth and Harmony. Earth Shield, again, you get the 6% damage reduction, but it also has its healing increased by a lot if the target is below 75% health. So you can get a lot of Earth Shield healing. This Earthen Communion could turn into a lot of Earth Shield healing on yourself. Whenever you get hit, you might heal for quite a bit. So yes, Shaman is still very weak, but these buffs are okay. They're not like criminally bad. They're okay. I think it falls in line with the way that Shaman functions. Let's go to the right side. There you go. Lava Burst gets an additional charge. Riptide gets an additional charge, and they do more damage. That is not insignificant. 5% is actually quite a bit for Lava Burst. So, because you're just going to be pressing it all the time, and then with Riptide, of course, you can get into the Riptide talents. You're going to be pressing this all the time. So, the additional charge is the main thing here. What I initially thought with this was, hey, maybe you could spec out of Echo the Elements. Maybe you could just not have Echo the Elements anymore. But it turns out with like pathing problems for Resto Shaman, it's basically impossible. For Ellie Shaman, it's also basically impossible because you're not ever taking Swelling Maelstrom. So the only way to get to like Surge of Power or Aftershock is through Echo the Elements. So it's kind of whatever. But you're going to get 3 charges now instead of 2, which is actually pretty significant for the way that this tree functions. Because the more you press Lava Burst and the more you press Riptide, the higher chance you have of summoning an Ancestor. So it's actually pretty good synergy there. This is your PvP one here. Spirit Walker's Momentum. Using spells with the cast time increases the duration of Spirit Walker's Grace and Spirit Walker's Aegis by 1 second. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of completely irrelevant. Here's the last one. Final Calling. This is actually very good and very, very cool. For Ellie Shaman, when an Ancestor expires, they cast Ellie Blast on a nearby enemy. So this is like actually kind of nuts because the way that the fire build functions right now, you have Primordial Wave, you have Rolling Magma, you have Splintered Elements, and then you have Magma Chamber into Wind Speakers. Look what Wind Speakers says. When you cast Earthshock, Ellie Blast, or Earthquake, you gain Lava Surge and increase the damage of your next Lava Burst. So this helps the cycle continue, right? You press Primordial Wave, and then you're like Lava Bursting into a Spender, into Lava Burst, into a Spender, and that is allowing you to cool down your Primordial Wave with Rolling Magma because you're casting so many Lava Bursts. But when you get a free proc on Elemental Blast, it is also going to proc Wind Speakers. That's what happens right now with the current tier set bonus. We get a free proc on Elemental Blast, and it will automatically give us a proc on Wind Speakers, makes our next Lava Burst free and instant. So the Final Calling for Ellie kind of feels like the tier set bonus that we have now being brought into the War Within in a talent tree that kind of works with it. So that's actually incredibly powerful. It does not even reduce the amount of damage that the Ellie Blast does. It simply casts a full-blown Ellie Blast. So it does lots of damage. It's going to give you the extra stats that Elemental Blast will give you, which if you recall was buffed a few months ago, right? So crit, haste, and mastery, it's quite a bit. And then it's also going to trigger things like Wind Speakers. It's also going to trigger things like Aftershock and Surge of Power, right? You get a free Ellie Blast from Surge of Power. Your next Lightning Bolt will overload 2 times. Your next Chain Lightning is going to chain an initial time, all that cool stuff. Or you could take Aftershock and potentially get a proc on Aftershock and then get a free spender. So this node is actually really, really big for Ellie Shaman. And I think a lot of people are missing all the synergies that are in the tree here. I think it's kind of wild. Imagine if you had 3 or 4 ancestors out because you're getting a deeply rooted proc and you're sending a lava burst after lava burst after lava burst. When they start expiring, it's just pew 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 pew, like 4 elemental blasts going off in like a 10-second window as they're all like dying. Like that would be crazy, right? That would be really, really crazy. That'd be a lot of damage. So and a lot of procs on wind speakers, which means you can just keep pressing lava burst over and over and over again and keep reducing the cooldown of primordial wave. So I think it's massive for Ellie, and I want to make sure I highlight that for you guys. For Resto, when an ancestor expires, they cast Hydro Bubble on a nearby injured ally. Surrounds the target in a protective water bubble for 10 seconds. The shield absorbs incoming damage, but the absorber amount decays fully over its duration. So Max had a good point on his stream. He was basically saying, like, this shield needs to be huge, or else it's not really going to make any sense. If it decays over time, it needs to start out at a really, really high amount. So we'll have to kind of see how that works. It is really cool to see that we're getting shields, and we have no idea what the numbers are on that. No idea. It could be good. It could be bad, but hopefully it's good. Again, we'll have to see how many ancestors you can summon as a Resto Shaman. I mean, your Riptide has a 15% chance. Again, you're going to have 3 charges of Riptide plus a Primordial Wave plus Primal Tidal Core, right? So, like, that's a ton of Riptides being cast at a time. I think for raid purposes, this makes Resto Shaman way, way better, actually, because you can take, like, Wave Speaker's Blessing, making Riptide last a lot longer, and then, again, you're going to have Primordial Wave. You could have Primal Tidal Core in the raid. You could just be getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Riptides out, like, in a hurry, like, really quick. You could just spread Riptides on everybody, and it's a really powerful spell now. So I think that there's something to be said there for the raid scenario. In terms of the Unleash Life, I just want to focus on that for 1 second. You are going to have to take Unleash Life as a Resto Shaman, which means you cannot take Undulation, which is a bit of a blow, I would say, to the Mythic Plus build for Resto Shaman, because you always take Undulation in Mythic Plus. You never take Unleash Life. Now, Unleash Life is no slouch. This spell hits really hard. It's 266% of your spell power on a 15-second cooldown. That's pretty good. And then, of course, it buffs your next spell. There's some interesting stuff going on here. Like, there might be a case where you could take Wellspring here, even in Mythic Plus. I don't know. But if you're forced to take Unleash Life, you could take Wellspring and get a bunch of Absorb Shields. Unfortunately, it does mean you're going to have to not take Deeply Rooted. So, Deeply Rooted is not as big of a deal for Resto Shaman because it doesn't make you cast a bunch of Riptides like the Elemental version does. So maybe you just don't take DRE and you take Wellspring, and then you're getting Wellspring shields on everybody from the Unleash Life. On top of that, of course, you're getting new shielding from this Hydro Bubble. So Resto Shaman might actually have the opportunity to get lots of shields on allies, which would be a new thing for Resto Shaman, and maybe a really good thing, because they just don't have any kind of shielding whatsoever, which means sometimes it's just kind of frustrating because you can't whatever people's maximum health are, that's all they've got, and you know, that's all you kind of get to work with. So this might potentially change some builds. I think for Resto Shaman in particular, it's going to change some things because you have to take Unleash Life versus taking Undulation, and then you might want to take a lot of the Primordial Wave stuff. Maybe get the cooldown down so that you have another Riptide. Combo that with Primal Tidal Core. We'll have to see. Certainly, Undercurrent is probably going to get a lot of value because you're going to have more Riptides out than you've ever had before in the raid scenario, because you have 3 charges of Riptide. There's lots of synergy there. So it's good. Like, Riptide is a really powerful spell for a Resto Shaman. If you take, like, both the points in Torrent, you can actually make it's almost as strong as casting a Healing Surge on somebody. It's like 85% of a Healing Surge. So, and it's instant and it's free. Healing Surge costs a lot of mana. So that might become what you do. Like, you basically, because you get 3 charges, you're basically never going to be casting Healing Surge again unless somebody really, really desperately needs a heal. So definitely some cool stuff going on here. For Elemental Shaman, I think this sort of solidifies a fire-based build, a Lava Burst build that has Wind Speakers and, of course, Primordial Wave with Rolling Magma, and you take Splintered Elements again. You might want to take Ascendance and then actually get press Ascendance so that you're getting a chance with all those Lava Bursts to call an Ancestor. But I think Deeply Rooted is going to be the play where you're getting procs just like you are now, and when you get that proc and it sends out all those Lava Bursts, there's a very good chance that you'll get an Ancestor to your side. So we're going to have to wait and see, guys. We don't know how good these Ancestors are. We don't even know what spells they cast. If they actually cast spells that are relevant to our talents, then this tree is completely cracked. This is a really, really strong tree. If they cast like Lava Burst, if they actually cast like Riptide. If they don't, the tree is still good, but it's not amazing, especially the Capstone node. I think they could replace this with a Capstone that interacts with Ascendants in some way, having your ancestors actually reduce the cooldown on Ascendants, or having your ancestors proc Deeply Rooted for you once. I think that would be kind of cool to see. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm happy with this for now. I think it needs a few buffs, but I'm actually happy. At least it's not as bad as some of the other trees that we have seen. There's been some really awful trees. So let me know what you guys think in those comments down below. Thank you so much again for watching. I love you all. I will see you in the next one.